The new isekai anime from JC Staff, The Executioner and Her Way of Life, premiered this past Friday, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to talk about it. So in this video I'm going to share with you all my thoughts on episode 1 as someone who read the first volume of the manga. First off, let me start by saying that this is one of my most anticipated shows for this year. There are a plethora of isekai anime that come out every year, but only a handful of them are really good and unique enough to stand out. This show's premise is so different from the generic ones we usually see, and after I read the manga, it made me realize just how uncreative a lot of the authors are when crafting stories in the genre. In this series, people from Japan who get summoned to another world are referred to as Lost Ones and are executed by the church because of the dangerous abilities they possess. The story is centered on an executioner named Minnow, who in this episode encounters Mitsuki Mutoi, a boy who has recently been summoned to her world by the king. Through Mitsuki, she learns that the king has also summoned a girl, so she must carry out her duties and kill them both. This episode was an almost perfect start to the series that did 3 things successfully. Firstly, the episode introduces several important characters and establishes their relationships to one another. Minnow is the first major character we're presented with following Mitsuki being summoned to her world. After discovering what his power was, she killed him without hesitation. Minnow's remorse for having to kill Lost Ones is conveyed through her internal dialogue, the brief dream sequence, and the way her hand shakes slightly after killing Mitsuki. The deaths of those she kills weighs heavily on her, but she understands that she is only doing her job. Over halfway through the episode, Minnow's aide Momo is introduced, and the fact that she's crazy over Minnow is quickly established. The character is brought in a lot earlier than in the manga, which was a smart decision given that the anime adds a flashback that fleshes Minnow out. In the manga, Momo arrives after Minnow kills them all inside the church. By bringing the character in earlier after the flashback, the lighthearted scenes with the 2 characters help to break up the action and even the tone out. I liked Momo in the manga, so I can't wait to see her fight in the anime. The character is used to provide comedy relief, and it's just as effective here as it was in the manga. The scene where she sneakily snaps a picture of Minnow and then snatches her book back from her was very funny. Anyway, the flashback showed how Minnow was rescued when she was younger by 2 members of the church, Archbishop Orwell and Flare, the woman that became her master. Flare was mentioned in the first volume of the manga, and the tragedy that occurred with the Lost One was only hinted at in the same volume, so I assumed the content from the flashback was taken from the later chapters in the light novel. Nevertheless, I enjoyed the flashback, and its inclusion served to not only flesh out Minnow and introduce her master, but also emphasize how deadly otherworlder abilities, referred to as pure concepts, truly are. Inserting the flashback early on was a wise decision from the studio, given that they removed some of Mitsuki's internal dialogue before he's killed by Minnow. He was thinking about how he could use his power to erase the king that had thrown him out like trash in the beginning of the episode. They did at least keep the line about him thinking that he could just get rid of anything in his way. I'm disappointed that they excluded the brief flashback where he's thinking about how he was always unlucky and couldn't keep up with his peers at school. By cutting those 4 panels of content, a bit of his character is lost. What we got instead was the comedy made about there being no more jerks treating him like trash upon him being summoned to the other world. I was hoping that the studio would expand on his story a bit, but it isn't a huge deal since he isn't a major character. A lot of people were apparently mad that this character was killed in the first chapter of the manga. Given how he's set up in the book, any other show he might have been another main character alongside Minnow, but that wasn't Mitsuki's purpose in the story. In the manga, he's used to show how potentially dangerous the Lost Ones are. However, since the anime added the flashback with the other Lost One, I guess they felt that they didn't need to include the content they cut and rely solely on the character to drive the point across. The second thing the premiere does effectively is that it establishes the world and its lore without relying on a long exposition dump. When Minnow is explaining her world's class structure to Mitsuki, the topic is brought up naturally and doesn't take up too much time as to affect the pacing. This show's world is very unique and the lore is very interesting so far. The land of Grisurica has been heavily influenced by Japanese culture due to many people from Japan being transported there. The anime does a much better job of highlighting this by showing how the Japanese language has been incorporated on the buildings and signs. The class structure is another aspect that sets this show's fantasy world apart, with the church having more authority than the government and royalty. This is something that the king and others in the noblest class are seeking to change by using the pure concept of lost ones. Magecraft, the show's take on magic, seems like it may work a bit differently than in other series. During the scene where the knights attack Minnow, she uses her scripture to utilize Magecraft. One of the knights also uses Magecraft with his sword, so we know that you don't need a book to use it. This episode doesn't go into detail on how it all works, but it can be inferred through the dialogue that it relies on a resource referred to as ether. There seems to be a lot that you can do with ether, such as boosting your physical ability to make yourself faster or even make camouflage with it. The scriptures Minnow and Momo carry can be used for things other than Magecraft too, such as taking pictures or transmitting information. The third and final thing that the premiere got right was the overall presentation. I read a comment the other day in which someone called the animation adequate, as if to say it was just serviceable or average, and I have to disagree. Sure, the animation isn't on the same level as what JC Staff has done with Railgun, but it's maybe a step or two below ReZero, which ain't bad at all. In my opinion, this is a good looking show in addition to featuring some great music so far. I think JC Staff has done an excellent job bringing this world to life, and I hope that they continue with this same level of quality throughout the season. The episode ends at the beginning of the second chapter where Minnow meets the other lost one, Akari Tokito. So far I think this show is moving at a decent pace and has the potential to be one of the best new series of the season. The one aspect of this show that I might end up hating is the Yuri stuff between Akari and Minnow, but we'll have to see how that's handled as we go along. Overall, this was a terrific first episode that properly set up the world and its characters while also providing entertaining action scenes. Let me know what you guys thought about the premiere in the comment section below, and thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.